Hey, so it's me, and he posted a video on my wall, so obviously I have to post a video back, and it can only be 30 seconds, so I'm going to try to cover all this as soon as I can.
You are going to grow up to be everything you imagined.
Are we doing a video?
I forget. You wanted to be an athlete? Lawyer? Wasn't it a doctor? You're going to need to study hard. This world won't be easy on you. But you're smart. You have everything you need to succeed in life. Or you would. Unfortunately, young one, this isn't that type of story. I want you to remember, when you think you can no longer go on, this had to happen to someone, and a higher power knew you were the only one strong enough for it to happen to.
Dionna, before her accident, was just on fire. She was already focused, as a freshman, already focused on going to Roberts Wesleyan for their pre-med program, and she wanted to play basketball at Roberts.
Her name is Deanna Marie. She was born April 4th around 8:30. She was 7 pounds, 7 ounces.
Where is it, right here?
Yep, center cushion.
How do I look? Deanna, before her accident, she was into everything. She was into 4 different types of dance, 4 different types of sports. She played the piano, played the cello, had a 4.2 average in high school.
She set goals, and that was the goal, and it was going to happen, and there was not anything that was gonna stand in her way or that she would allow to tell her no. I remember that. So especially in the 50 free, which she ended up making sectionals in, that was the goal, and every week was chipping away towards that goal.
She would take everything to the nth degree. In school, she always had to, get A's in school, or otherwise she'd be upset with herself. She always wanted to be the best at everything she did.
The day of the accident, Deanna bounded down the stairs, so excited to go to sectionals. She yelled, "Bye, Mom!" and out the door she went. And we were all excited to see her perform in sectionals. She had worked so hard, and she had moved up from JV to varsity her first year of swimming.
She said, "I'll see you all later at the swim meet," and off she went.
I didn't take the bus with the team. I came separately, and I got there, and I could see that there was something going on at the end of the pool. And as I walked closer, I realized that it was our team, that whatever had happened was our team. And so I went over, and the lifeguards were around Deanna, and the coach was around Deanna, and they were determining basically at that point what the next steps needed to be and sending someone to call 911. And at that point, I knew, okay, this is a big deal.
General Hospital. This is medical.
We had picked up my mom and Joe, and we were heading out to Webster, where sectionals was scheduled to be. We were running late. We got a call from her coach saying that they had to take Dionna into the hospital. We were thinking, oh, she's young. She probably got dehydrated. She probably passed out. They'll take her into the ED, pump her full of fluids, and send her home.
Yeah, to kind of figure out, like, well, what do we do? Like, we're obviously not going to send, you know, a 14-year-old to the hospital alone. This is terrifying. But we also, like, need to make sure we don't leave these kids here. So I said, I'm going to go with her. So they took us, and we initially were slated to go to Rochester General Hospital. And I think they realized along the way that what was going on was far more significant than what the pediatric unit there would be able to handle. And so they brought us to Strong, where we were, like, immediately rushed in, 0 wait. They were waiting for us.
Her friend Nick from church came down and sat with us. The coach who had ridden the ambulance with her came and talked to us. And it was just like sitting on tenterhooks waiting for an answer. I'm an ICU nurse, so naturally when I walk into a hospital or an ED room and I see somebody in the crash room, I know that's not good. I know that her lack of responsiveness was not good. I knew it was something very, very serious, but to the extent of how serious it was, I didn't know.
I was a small child. My dad had a stroke at home. And I remember that. And I remember what he looked like. And I remember helping my mother. And I remember letting the people from the ambulance in. And so when I saw Dionna, even though we weren't sure, we didn't know a diagnosis, I remember saying to my mom, like, I don't think she had a seizure. Like, I think that this was a bigger deal than that. And so I remember, like, connecting it to that and what that felt like, which also was part of why I jumped in the ambulance with her, because I was like, I cannot imagine anyone going through this experience alone.
She had some problems with some of her tubing and that sort of thing, and the nurses were in, and they had to constantly rearrange the tubing. One of them was I believe it was a PICC line that went into the heart, and so they actually had to x-ray her every time they moved the line, and so they had to wheel in the big x-ray machine. And they also had to change her bed a couple times, her bedding. And she was awake, she was moving around. It was a pretty long night. And then finally she fell asleep Saturday morning, and then a doctor came in to examine her. And I could hear from on the other side of the curtain, the doctor would say, "Dionna, wake up. Dionna, wake up." And after he said it a third time, I got concerned, and I got up and walked around the corner. And he tried waking her up, and she wouldn't wake up. And he opened her left eye, and her eye was dilated. And at that point, he called for a surgeon, stat, and I started really panicking. The nurse came in the room and said, "This doesn't look good." And it was like Dr. Silberstein. It seemed like he just walked through the wall, and he appeared, and they rushed her to surgery, and it was probably 3 or 4 hours later. They brought her back and told us what they had done.
When they'd taken her away, did you think that was the last time you were going to see your daughter?
That thought went through my mind, yes.
My name is Dionna, and I am a stroke survivor. I walked out to the pool and I was warming up to swim sectionals, and I got out of the pool and I said to a couple of friends, I'm like, I am not feeling good. And I sat in a chair, and 10 seconds later, I was on the ground, and my left and my right sides were numb, and I can't speak. My family was already there, and my dad went in the room, and I stared at him. But I passed out on not drugs but sedatives from the hospital, and I passed out, and I woke up a week later.
A doctor, meaning well, sat down and showed me the MRI, and I saw all the damage that was done in her brain. It was so hard to function at that point, because knowing enough about medicine to look at that and go, that's my child. This is not going to go well. I want to say she was in the hospital maybe 72 hours when they had to take her down to do the craniotomy. My husband had stayed overnight. I was getting ready to come down to the hospital to relieve him so he could come home, get some sleep. And my husband called and said, you got to get down here right away. It appeared that her eyes were no longer equal and reactive, which meant that the brain was pressing on the optic nerves. And when the brain swells, it pushes down on the spinal cord and it herniates, is what they call it. And people die like that. So I believe Joe was here in the house at the time. We hopped in the car and drove like crazy people all the way down to Strong, because we didn't know if it was going to be our last goodbye. And I did get there just as they rolled her away to go to surgery. And I remember I kissed her goodbye, just in case. I told her I loved her. And as the bed was rolling away, I have a certain belief system. And I said, Lord, she's yours. Whatever happens on this day, you bring the glory to it. Prior to Dionna's stroke was so very busy. There was dance lessons, and there was Boy Scouts for Joe, and we were running 95 miles an hour.
Molly, what's going on?
From the day of her stroke, it was like we got thrown off a cliff with nothing to hang on to. Our whole life changed. Our daughter wasn't home from her sports for dinner for 3-4 months. Well, she never did really go back to sports, but I mean, our family dynamics changed because she wasn't with us. We had to go down to the rehab and spend days there, and I think Joe had more dinners at the rehab than he did at home. But, we stuck together as a family. We pulled together, but it was just like life all of a sudden. It changed in an instant. Changed on a dime, as they say.
I didn't know what to expect. This was the first time I had ever been through something like this, and hopefully the last. Every day was an accomplishment. She showed signs of improvement every single day, and, again, we took it one day at a time, and, tried to help her wherever we can and whatever we could do to help her out. Well, Joe was young at the time as well. He's 2 years older, so he was only 13 when this happened. And I think it hit Joe harder than he let on. In a lot of ways, I think maybe in his mind he may feel like it never did happen, but in reality, I know he does know that this all happened, and it. I think at the time it hit him pretty hard. We had gone out to breakfast a couple days after it happened, and we were talking, and I could just tell in his voice that, he was taking it harder than he was letting on.
In terms of therapies, she went to the brain injury rehab she lived there for 3 months. She came home, and then we started Monday through Friday speech, occupational, and physical therapy.
I was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks, and I finally walked with assistance and with a cane and stuff, and yeah, I had no speech, I guess. I did have speech therapy, but not improved at all.
The school assigned her a teacher. We called her Mrs. S because her last name was quite long. And she worked with Dionna every day to try and instill the colors, things you would learn before kindergarten. Dionna still wasn't talking at that point. She wasn't even saying her name. She could not say her name. She couldn't call for us. She was, you can't say mute, but it pretty much was mutism. That was always kind of nerve-wracking, like, oh my gosh, if she needs us in the middle of the night, how is she going to get our attention if she can't say something? The powers that be at therapy said that they felt that she was functional. And I believe most parents have a different idea of what functional is compared to maybe the therapy community. About a year out, she was walking. She no longer needed the wheelchair. It wasn't a nice, steady, even gait. It was very much a limpy gait with a lot of knee giving out. She was able to shrug her shoulders and lift her arm up a little bit, but that was it. And then for speech, she was saying her name, and she could say maybe a 3-word sentence, and it wasn't in an order that you could often understand it. It was like all over the place. She couldn't get the word right, so,
Perfect. Thank you.
So there was always a lot of anticipation around her speech. One of the first words she learned was mom. The next word she learned was no. So I got a lot of no, mom. So we pretty much exhausted the amount of therapy she could have in Rochester to some extent. I mean, she could go 3 days a week. They brought her down to that. Then they brought her down to 1 day a week. And I'm like, nobody progresses on 1 day a week. And our insurance company was still willing to pay. We had very good insurance at the time. So I started doing research, and I came across the Taub Clinic in Alabama where they do intensive therapies. They go to therapy 4 hours out of a day. Then the patient comes home and does 4 hours worth of homework with the caregiver. And by then, the patient's completely exhausted.
There.
basically like training on my bad hand, and they casted the good arm for 3 weeks, but they take it off every night to go to bed. It was not like really anyway.
We discouraged strongly compensatory behaviors. That is, what the monkeys and human stroke patients do is use the good arm to do the work of both arms. So they stop using the affected arm. That is done over and over repeatedly. And what happens is they learn to not try to use the affected arm. The second thing we do is we encourage normal use of the affected arm. Now, the use of the affected arm isn't normal, but we try to get individuals to do the best they can and to keep trying. Because another thing that we learned early on, starting in some research I did in Germany, where I set up CI therapy clinics, 4 of them, and then back here at UAB, is that what CI therapy does, it produce a massive plastic change in the brain, a plastic reorganization.
She worked so very hard in therapy to try and get her arm back. Next time we went down was for her speech. They were running a study.
Do you really want to go to Alabama? Yeah. What's so important about it? Speech. All right.
And she started saying maybe 7 or 8 word sentences, which now I felt like, oh, we're finally getting somewhere. You know, I can figure out, even if it's disjointed, what those 8 words come to. One of the funny things is she was trying to say linguine and clam sauce, and it came out squeenie, and we call it squeenie to this day. What do you want for dinner? Squeenie. We went again for her arm. This was a little different constraint-induced therapy because by then she was 18. And I think that was the most difficult trip because at 18, children want to be so very independent of their parents. And they casted her arm again. And she didn't want me helping her with toileting. She didn't want me helping her with certain personal tasks. And eventually she was just like, I guess this is how it's going to be. But it, you know, we got through it. And she really, that time, she really improved a lot. That's where she was able to begin to think about getting in the pool and maybe going 15 feet, you know, trying to swim.
I think of you often, actually.
Yeah. It's so young.
Actually, I do. I speak of you because, you know, it turns out that you were one of the first 2 people that we started doing intensive follow-up with. So when you left here, you were speaking in a very improved fashion, but after you left here, you kept improving. You did, you know.
It was like 8 years ago, and my stroke happened 10 years ago. And I find that speaking every day with somebody is good.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah. I went to intense speech and language therapy and reading therapy too. in Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the first time going, I had 80% talking and 20% reading, and I felt like it was like my talking is improved in like afterward.
Through research again, I found a speech program in Marquette that was reasonable. They don't accept any insurance, so that's out-of-pocket costs. But when we started going there, cognitively she became better, and her speech was improving. And just day over day, you could see those incremental gains. I mean, with stroke survivors, it's never like, oh, she couldn't say, I'm trying to think of a good example. She couldn't say train yesterday, but she can say it today. It's not like that. It comes so much more incrementally, and especially in the sentence structure. Instead of just pointing and saying train, she could say, there goes the train. And we were like, wow, okay, we're heading in the right direction.
Some of the things that we're proudest of her, accomplishing is, since the accident, was her ability to walk again. We actually were able to do a trip to Italy, and she was able to walk, with a lot of help. It was tough for her, but she was able to do that. She's learned to drive. She graduated high school. She's now on to college. And, every day is just, she amazes us with things that she does from day to day.
The final meet that she had, I actually brought my daughter. I still have the pictures of it. And I remember watching, and I remember just standing there and crying because I was just like so proud to see her come back from all of that. It was just like it was a really beautiful moment. And I still remember the girls. I remember they circled up and they did the circle cheer in the shallow end where everyone was jumping and cheering. And it was just like it's a really nice memory.
It's certainly a special night, to see her work so hard to get back here, and knowing how good she was at the time when she had the accident, and see her come here and knowing that she's still going to make it. She's going to make that 50s. She's going to make the 50 in the individual event. She's just got a great attitude, and it's awesome to see her here.
And in lane 1, Dionna Zupparo.
I'm very excited for her, and she deserves this opportunity, and supportive of her. I'm just thrilled to be here and share this moment with her.
Where she finished in the race wasn't going to be as important as how she finished her senior night. In your best words, describe this moment. What's it been like all day?
Nervous, basically. Oh my God, nervous.
Start a fire when it's dark out, baby. So don't you dare lose heart. And even when the vow starts breaking, the fall won't be too far. Cause your soul is burning brighter than ever, and he ain't gonna stop till it's definitely here. I know you're in the dark, but don't lose heart. But don't.
Dionna attempted to play the guitar for the first time that I know of since her stroke.
I've been calling out to you so long, feel like you missed it or I got the wrong number. All I hear is thunder. Would you come and help me find a light?
Start a fire when it's dark out, baby.
Start a fire.
So don't you dare lose heart. And even when the vow starts breaking, the fall won't be too far. Cause your soul is burning brighter than ever, and he ain't gonna stop till it's definitely here. I know you're in the dark, but don't lose heart. But don't lose heart.
I met Dionna in August of 2020 on Bumble. She actually messaged me and said, "My name is Dionna. I like sushi and hiking. What about you?" And I don't remember what the conversation evolved into, but obviously I made an impression because it was only a week later we had our first date at the Rochester Zoo, and after that we went home. I made chicken parm. We had a Wegmans date. We commented on how it was probably the most suburban date that you could imagine, picking up food at Wegmans. And from there, it was not even a question of if we were meant for each other. Before even finishing dinner, she said that she would want to be my girlfriend.
He gave me a ring pop, and he said, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" And I said yes. So cute.
Just having a daughter in general starting to date is tough enough. You know, the old saying, when you have a boy, you watch out for your boy. When you have a girl, you watch out for everyone else's boy. And, you know, that on top of the fact that she had the accident, there was a little more concern there. And we also had the benefit of the fact that her brother, we found out over the years, has been a really, really good judge of character. And I think he's been right probably 100% of the time.
Yes,
so
he
far.
has.
So that was an advantage too. But yeah, you had to be careful.
It was a really unique experience actually meeting him for the first time and being told over and over again, don't feel bad if Joe doesn't like you. He doesn't really like any of Deanna's boyfriends. And the first time we met at a restaurant in Brockport, we talked the entire time, and then Joe friend requested me on Facebook the next day. And Dionna was so blown away, and her parents couldn't believe it. And so we've been great friends ever since.
Sorry we messed up your vlog.
Messed it up. Your intimate bits are the highlight of the show. So a short time after meeting Dionna, I learned that she had a note taker that helped her on her day-to-day school activities and in her life activities in general, which I guess I wasn't shocked to hear. It made sense, but I never really expected to meet Vicky, her note taker, and to really learn that Vicky was more than just a note taker to Dionna. Vicky became Deanna's best friend.
So Dionna had a previous note taker, and she was going to be going out on maternity leave. She, had a family and wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for a while. So the irony is that I had just had a baby the day before I had just had a baby. So the previous note taker comes in, and I remember it like it was yesterday. She's standing in the doorway visiting, and she says, "Do you know of anybody who would be interested in working with a college student who has a cognitive disability, who would be interested in attending class and taking notes and helping with homework?" And I'm like, yeah, I would. That sounds really, really interesting. Getting paid to go to school. Thanks. Sign me up. I turned to my husband and I said, that actually sounds really cool. And he's like, yeah. He's like, if you think you'd enjoy it, why not pursue it? And yeah, it was really great. I love to learn new things. So the opportunity to meet somebody new and learn new things and be able to help somebody, because I like helping people. I mean, where can you go wrong?
Vicky is my note taker and best friend and my whole world, basically.
My role with Dionna had different facets to it. My main role was as a note taker. So I would attend class with her when she had classes on campus. I would help her take notes during lectures. I would help her with her homework. I would help her with her exams, help her maintain academic integrity. When it came to working on papers and such, we would go over the guidelines of the assignment, come up with a topic. Dionna would go, come up with a topic or, throw ideas at each other about what might interest her. And from there, we would brainstorm and work on how to put the idea together.
She would go to school with me and help me write and read and stuff. And she notes on the computer to read, note taking on the computer, and all around my best friend.
Other opportunities arose for other goals, such as socialization, making friends, activities. Dionna was interested in, healthier living. So in terms of healthier eating or going to the gym or finding ways to get some activity in, budgeting. We worked on budgeting. I would help her, look for healthier choices when we were out shopping, which also led into practicing a budget with her, trying to prioritize, and do you really need the name brand or is the store brand okay? Or going to a less expensive grocery store in an effort to save money.
One of the unique experiences that I got to be a part of was going to Milwaukee at Marquette University with Dionna in the summer of 2021, and actually sitting in and seeing the therapies, the speech therapies that she was going through, and really seeing how her brain worked and how I could help her in her day-to-day life, encourage the growth that she would need to continue developing her speech and her reading and writing. I'm forever blessed to be able to see that, because she wanted me to see her at her worst mentally. At the end of the day, she would be so drained that she just would want to sleep. And it was really cool to see that intense therapy and how much she worked.
So now I'm outside exploring, and Dionna is back from therapy. She's ahead of me. And I do have to say, this is a really pretty city. So I am enjoying the views so far.
It got me dreaming at the station.
Stopping for a brief lunch at, what is this restaurant called? Blue Bat? So, Blue Bat Kitchen and yeah, something.
When I say I need you, and you hit the direction that's leading away from me, baby. I don't believe you, no. 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 I don't believe you, no, no.
Yeah, she is the perfect person for me. I know it's cliche to say yin to my yang, but I am a miserable, grumpy person, and Dionna will find the bright part of just about everything. We'll be driving on the highway and somebody will pass doing 100 miles an hour and I'll curse and have road rage, and Deanna's always like, well, you never know, they could be doing something important or going to the hospital. Yes, Dionna, but the hospital's the other direction. And so it's funny, like opposites attract, and that's true. And also I've been kind of the support system for Dionna. She has faced a lot of hard times since we've been together, and I think I'm really that rock that she relies on to keep her grounded.
I'm most worried about her securing employment so that she can support herself and make her dreams come true. Someday her father and I won't be here to offer or lend support, and I want to see her have her own apartment, her own place, you know, her own place in the world where she decorated it and it's beautiful to her. I don't want to see her living a life of people in our society are not given the same chances as someone else who is full-bodied. It's disheartening. It's sad, because there's plenty of people who have disabilities of all different kinds that could work a job, but the employer is not necessarily going to take a chance on them because they think there's something mentally wrong with them. And mentally they could be fine, just maybe their hand doesn't work, or, you know, maybe they need extra time to think of their sentences so that they come out properly. It's just kind of sad that we as a nation don't look more favorably upon disabled individuals.
I think a big reason that it was important to create this documentary was not just to tell Dionna's story. She does a great job telling her story to everybody she meets, but I think that there is a lot of people out there that don't know how to keep going, and they see what is ahead of them and they give up. They think that it's too much, that they can't climb that mountain. And I feel like it's important that no matter what type of a disability you have, or no matter what's happened to you, especially if it's an injury or a disability, that you can get over it and you can find a new normal. And I feel like that's the first reason that I needed to create this documentary. But also, I feel like it highlights a lot of issues that people don't think of. And I wish Dionna was more comfortable talking about it, but there's a lot of discrimination that people with disabilities face.
Her mother doesn't have her mask on, which is one of the rules to be in here. Yeah, and that's going to be something else. Okay, so they're giving you a problem because you're giving issues. She's putting on her mask now, just so you know. Okay. We were 6 feet aside. I'm going to come over there now. Okay, that's good. That's all my stuff.
Excellent.
So you're just having issues with the family that's in there right now? Yeah, there's right.
I'll go out, eat them.
She touched my things for like the 3rd time, even though it's you touched my Starbucks cup, you moved my laundry out of the dryer, even though I know. Yes, so she moved my things off my bed.
I don't think the world is ready to accept her, and I don't think the world is ready to accept people with disabilities in general. We can't, as a society, overcome the fact that people have different skin colors, let alone that they talk funny and they can't seem to complete a sentence. I hope that people who would discriminate against somebody with a disability see this and see that she's a normal person just like everybody else. She might talk a little different, she might act a little different, but she had a stroke. It doesn't mean she's a different person, and everybody deserves to be treated like a person. And if you don't like what they have to say, or if they annoy you, walk away. Just walk away. Or better yet, acknowledge that you have those biases and try to get to know that person and see what's on the inside.
I'm proud of the way that she conducts herself. She doesn't use the disability card as an excuse. I have a disability, I can't do that. No, Dionna always will try to do it, whatever it is. I know one time she went hiking with a friend of hers. She fell down like 5 times, but she still kept trying to hike anyway. That's how, you know, she's just got this determination in her that she's going to succeed one way or another.
Just her tenacity and overcoming not only adversity in society, but also her overcoming her own perceived fears is just remarkable. When everyone says that she's an inspiration, I mean, it really is true. She really is. She's a role model for anybody, regardless of where they are in life.
I hope that this documentary helps bring a voice to Dionna to where she can then become an advocate for disability. And I hope that it propels her forward and that she can continue to make changes that she wants to make.
I am so proud of myself because day one did not graduate high school. And going to college, and I am doing it, and over 7 years going to college, but I did it.
Maybe we're made for a time like this, counting each breath so we wouldn't miss it. Don't close your eyes, undecided in all our trouble. Say goodbye, well you know I'd follow. Don't close your eyes. So don't close your eyes. Don't want you passing by. Stay with me, here with me. When time is on our side, stay with me, here with me. Stay with me, here with me.
I heard you were expecting me to propose today earlier.
No.
So I made it later.
No.
So you are a very hard person to surprise because you know when things are going to happen. So
I know.
Everybody here we've been planning it for like 6 months now.
6 months?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So from like the moment I saw you, I knew that you were different from everybody else, and you're inspiring. And I started my company because of you, and I just know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I'm too old to stay single forever. So Dionna, if you would do me the honor of marrying me.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So this diamond has a black inclusion in it. And when they gave me this diamond, it made me think of you because your brain is perfect, just like this diamond, but it has a small flaw like you. So you're perfect together.
Stick it on.
What's that?
Stick it on.
Stick it all the way. It's as far as it's gonna go.
Aww.
I love you.
Love you.